What's up, guys? Welcome to our One City YouTube channel. We are so glad that you guys are joining us today. Hey, if you get a chance, hit that subscribe button, give us a like, leave us a comment. We're just inviting you on this journey with us as the Lord leads us in rebuilding our city. And what does that look like? And what does that mean? And what does God's Word have to say about it? You're also going to find out some information about me. I'm what's called a nomadic office dweller. So I'll be in all kinds of different locations. Right now, I'm actually coming from my bedroom. The wall you see behind me with all those pictures is my wife's wall and her little desk. So she runs an organization called Royal Promise. So you need to check them out. An incredible ministry in Ghana, Africa. So behind, she's got all kinds of pictures with the variety of kids that they care for in their different mission centers, their school, etc. So royalpromise.org if you ever want to check that out. But I'm in my bedroom today trying to get a video uploaded out to you guys, just walking you through this journey that is called One City and what God is leading us to do as a community. And we are so grateful that you're coming along this journey with us. So today I wanted to touch on, like, how did all of this start? One thing that I've had asked of me often over the last 6 months as God began to stir is, what are my intentions? Like, what are my intentions coming from the suburbs, from Eden Prairie, Minnesota, as a pastor at Grace Church here in Eden Prairie, and going into South Minneapolis? Certainly, I have some ulterior motives and just wanting to serve our city, wanting to serve the local urban church. And here's the reality of it. I have no alternative motives. I just want to do what God is calling us to do. So today, I'm just going to kind of take you through the journey that has been the last 12, 13 months, how God started this stirring to where God has us now. And then as we go on in these different videos, we're going to hopefully equip others of you who are either wanting to go into the city, who are in different urban communities throughout the United States, in terms of what God is asking us to do, and hopefully it'll impact you as well. So here's how the journey got started. It was a year ago, September of 2019. One of our missions pastors here at Grace Church came and got me and said, hey, Jake, I have a pastor prayer reconciliation meeting that I'm going to, prayer meeting. Would you want to join me? And initially, I was like, I don't have time to go to a pastor prayer reconciliation meeting. But it was some time to hang out with Steve Harrison. It was a free lunch. And so, sure, I will go. And that particular meeting took place at Christ Church International, right down on 13th and Lake Street in South Minneapolis. And I walked into that pastor prayer reconciliation meeting, and there were only about 10 of us. But immediately this burden was just placed upon me. And I couldn't shake it. No matter how hard I tried, I could not shake the burden that had been placed on me. I didn't know why. I didn't know what it was about. I didn't know what the Lord was doing or what he was beginning. But I knew there was a burden on me for that particular church. And I left that meeting saying, God, well, what is that all about? And as the months and the weeks and the months went by, there was no shaking the burden. It wasn't like one of those moments and then you come home and you're like, I don't know what that was about. Let's move on. It was there with me day after day after day. Fast forward to January 2020, Pastor Dale Gaddis is a senior pastor there at Christ Church International. I felt like the Holy Spirit was asking me just to reach out to him and share my heart with the burden that has been placed upon me. And so we scheduled a lunch, and he had just returned from Nigeria on a mission trip with some of his people and his congregation. And I said, Pastor Dale, I don't know what the Lord is doing, but I feel as though I'm called to serve you. And I'm called to serve this church. And I don't know what that means. I don't know what that looks like. But here's the burden that's been placed on me for your church, for this neighborhood, for this community. Give you a little backdrop, too. I spent a lot of time in South Minneapolis growing up as an elite basketball player and who went to play college basketball at Iowa State. But a lot of my AAU practices were down in Minneapolis. And actually, my coach of my 17 under AU team is a guy named Joe Heiser, who's at Minneapolis South High School. So there were a lot of connections, a lot of history in the community, but this burden was placed on me. And as you can imagine, the lunch was a little awkward. And what is that all about? Who is this guy from Eden Prairie? We and Pastor Dale didn't have any real deep relationship other than a handful of these meetings. And fast forward again another 6 or 8 weeks, and boom, COVID-19 hits. And our entire world is shut down. And here in Minnesota, we have stay-at-home orders, and churches can't gather, and all ministry is shut down. And I was just wrestling with the Lord, like, what was that all about, right? Like, what was that whole deal that you had? Like, I can't even do ministry now, and I'm shut down and locked up in my home, and yet I had this meeting with Pastor Darrell. So as the spring went on, everybody's trying to survive the COVID-19 pandemic, and quite frankly, I didn't put a whole lot more thought to our January meeting up until May. And then at the end of May, the George Floyd situation happens, which everybody is, right, obviously probably aware of, where the police kneeled on George Floyd's neck for an extended period of time, ultimately leading to his death. And what spurred from that particular scene down in South Minneapolis throughout our entire nation, talking about systematic racism and the protests and the marches and the call for action that was our entire nation, not just Minneapolis. And then shortly after, there were protests that turned into rioting, that turned into looting, and before we knew it, there were miles stretches down on Minneapolis and Lake Street and other areas of our city that had been burnt to the ground and had been destroyed. And I was in San Antonio, Texas, while all of this was taking place, and I started communicating with our senior pastor here at Grace Church, saying, what can we do to help in the midst of all of this? And I said, well, there's a church in Christ Church International down on Lake Street that I felt burdened for and compelled to. Let's do whatever we can from a resource standpoint to help them be the light of the community during this very, very, very difficult time. And so we partnered with Christ Church International along with a handful of other churches to help them start a Bags of Hope food distribution program. And we were distributing food all throughout the neighborhood throughout the summer. But one of those first food distribution days, I was up serving and helping out wherever I could help out. And I ran into this guy named Casey. He's a young adult from Christ Church International. And me and Casey just started like literally a 2-minute conversation, just kind of passing by on the sidewalk. But yet the Lord had a connection point for us. And our connection point was, he graduated from Iowa State in 2016. I graduated from Iowa State in 2014. So immediately, boom, there was a connection. And of course, you'd meet somebody right at the church, a young adult on Lake Street, in the midst of all of this, that had graduated from Iowa State. So we exchanged numbers. And I got home that evening, and here's what the Lord's put on my heart. He's like, so at Grace Church, I got to oversee our young adult ministries in partnership with a guy named John Christensen. And I'm like, what would it look like to do a young adult ministry plant down in South Minneapolis, where we were going into the community, right? We were going into the church, and we were starting to lay down roots, especially through just building relationships in the community. It's hard to do. You just fly in, meet a need, fly out, and act like everything's gone back to normal. We wanted to set roots in the community, and we wanted to do something that was going to be way deeper than just a food distribution program on a Saturday. And so I texted him that night. I said, what do you think about us doing a young adult ministry launch? And he said yes. And I said, well, here's what we better do. Like, we better at least do the Christian thing, and we better pray about it for a week. And so we got a parted from that text message, and we prayed about it. And actually, it was 2 weeks later I got back at him, and I said, is the Lord still leading you to help with this ministry launch? And he said yes. And I said yes. And I said, well, let's do it. And I said, Casey, you go and recruit a few people. I'll recruit a few people. We'll build a launch team. And then we'll begin to meet basically every other Sunday night all through the course of the summer, and treat this really like a church plant. And we want to launch a young adult ministry. So Thursday nights, we want to be able to gather, 6:30, food, fellowship, worship, message. And we want to say, God, like, use us in the city. There's this incredible quote, one of my favorite quotes ever, from the movie Free Burma Rangers. And here's what kind of the lead person in that movie says. He said, run into the sound of the bullets, run into the sound of need, and God will show you how you can be useful. And that was really the purpose behind this young adult ministry plan. We wanted to run in the direction of the sound of need, saying, God, you show us how we can be purposeful. At the same time, in the midst of all these pastor prayer reconciliation meetings, I discovered two things. One, right, I discovered a lot of the urban churches and immigrant and black churches in our communities, right, they're lacking engagement from young people, particularly young adults. Now, that's not all. I'm just saying a lot of them. And I'm saying one thing that we could do is, right, we can establish young adult ministries inside the local urban church and help draw young people back into the church, where I believe and we believe God has designed to be the light of the community. So that was one. The other thing that I began to learn was the damage that church planting has actually done in our urban communities. And here's what I mean by that, right? The typical, again, I'm not saying everyone, I'm just saying typical white evangelical church comes out from the suburbs, comes into the city, drops $3, $4, $5 million, plants a multi-site or a church plant, right? They're the new upcoming new thing on the street. Or they take the young people and at the same time oftentimes overlook the urban church that's already there. Overlook the black pastor and the immigrant pastor who's saying like, hey, I'm here, right? We can do the work of ministry, but we often just lack resources. Simply the unequal distribution of wealth from our urban communities to our suburban communities, which also takes place oftentimes within the context of the local church. And we lack young people. Like, come and help us. Like, partner with us. Like, let's do ministry together. And it totally radically shifted how I thought about ministry in urban communities, how I thought about the urban church, especially the black and the immigrant church, and saying, like, we need to partner together. Like, we need to put our differences aside, right? We need to set some of those differences aside of whether I'm AG or I'm Pentecostal or I'm non-denominational or I'm whatever my background is, I'm E-free. Like, let's agree on the primary tenets of the good news of the gospel. And then things that can be debated, let's debate those when we arrive in heaven someday, right? Like if we agree on the primary tenets of let's go do ministry together and stop this divide that exists in our church. And that's really where we got to. So we said, let's launch this young adult ministry. We had no idea what it was going to turn into. But one thing we did begin to understand over the course of the summer, as we gathered together one, but then we began to open up the books of Nehemiah and Ezra. And we said, wait, like there is a blueprint for rebuilding our city. It's been given to us in Scripture. Everybody's trying to think, how do we tackle these issues of systematic racism? How do we tackle these issues of the unequal distribution of wealth? Like, how do we tackle these really heavy issues that have quite frankly destroyed many of our urban communities? And as we opened Ezra and we opened Nehemiah, we're saying, wait, the model is there, the blueprint. God's given us the blueprint. Right? The exiles returning from Babylon back to Jerusalem, city whose walls lay destroyed, temple destroyed, and yet God was faithful in helping them rebuild the city over about a 90-year period of time. And we're saying, wait, the blueprint's here. Like this is more than just a young adult ministry. God, like we weren't expecting to do this. This wasn't our plan, but we want to be obedient and we want to run into the sound of need. And that's what this YouTube channel is going to be about too. Like, we're inviting you along with us on this journey. Like, we don't know what we're doing if we were completely honest with you, but we do know what God's word says. And we do know that as Christ followers, we are called to be obedient to it. And we do know our urban communities are hurting right now. So as Christians, as Christ followers, like we are called to run into the sound of need. And that's what we are. There are no, right, ulterior motives or ill intentions. Like, there's no like, hey, look at us on Instagram, or look at us YouTube, look at this work. Like, no. Like, we want the gospel to go forth through the local church in our urban community so light shines. But we believe it's more than just gathering on a Thursday night. That's where we're going to build community, right? That's where we're going to rally young adults together. That's where we're going to cast vision through God's word. But it's going to be greater than that. And we're so excited about this YouTube channel to have you come along on this journey with us. That's long enough for today. So we're just going to continue to share the vision, right? We're going to open up God's word together on this channel, and we're going to say, God, do what only you can do. Help lead us as we think about rebuilding our city. Hit the subscribe button if you like this stuff. You want to come along this journey with us. Give us a like. All of that stuff helps. And this is one way we're praying that the Lord will also help fund the initiatives that we have in our urban communities in South Minneapolis with One City, to see this thing go way beyond just 13th and Lake Street, but to see this thing go throughout our entire nation as we think about our urban communities and we think about the gospel. So hit that subscribe button, give us a like. We'll be back tomorrow with another video. Love you guys. Talk soon.